The Moabite Stone, Mesha Stele. Moab is the name of the kingdom from biblical times that bordered the east side of the Dead Sea from the southern end northward, just beyond the ancient city of Dibon. The people from Moab are called Moabites, and according to Genesis 19:37, Moabites are descendants of Lot and his eldest daughter. But in the Bible, Ruth is probably the most recognizable person from Moab. Israel's interaction with the Moabites runs throughout most of the Old Testament, and the relationship is often strained and tense. In the 700s BC, Moab fell under Assyrian domination, along with Israel, Judah, Ammon, and the other kingdoms of the region. Besides the Bible, Moab is mentioned in the writings of Assyrian kings Tiglath-Pileser III, Sargon II, Sennacherib, and Esarhaddon. One of the most widely recognized archaeological artifacts from the biblical period came from the land of Moab. It is called the Moabite Stone, or the Mesha Stele. A stela is an upright stone slab or pillar, usually bearing an inscription, and used to serve as a monument or marker. The Moabite Stone is a basalt stone slab with an inscription. Christopher Ralston has given us a good brief description of it. The Moabite Stone is dated around 840 BCE, containing a significant Canaanite inscription in the name of King Mesha of Moab. Mesha tells how Chemosh, the god of Moab, had been angry with his people and had allowed them to be conquered by the kingdom of Israel. But at length, Chemosh returned and assisted Mesha to throw off the yoke of Israel and restore the lands of Moab. Mesha also describes his many building projects. The inscription is written in a variant of the Phoenician alphabet, closely related to the Paleo-Hebrew script. It is very common to see pictures of the Moabite Stone in the pages of Old Testament introductions, archaeology introductions, Bible dictionaries, and books discussing the literature of the ancient Near East. The Moabite Stone itself is on display at the Louvre in Paris, France, and seen by throngs of people annually, both in person and online. The discovery of the Moabite Stone is one of international intrigue. That tale has added greatly to the lore and fame of the stone. The discovery of the Moabite Stone dates to 1868. The story began with a minister named F.A. Klein, a medical missionary in Jerusalem. Klein spoke fluent Arabic and helped Jews and Arabs, including Bedouin on the east side of the Jordan River in the Dead Sea. His benevolence was rewarded by their friendship. As Klein traveled in 1868, the Bedouin Arabs told him of an inscripted black basalt stone lying among the ruins of the biblical city Dibon. When Klein first saw this stone, it was laying with the inscription upward. Klein made a hand drawing of the stone and copied a few of the characters from the inscription. He then negotiated an oral agreement to buy the stone for a price which is estimated to be about $400 at the time. Klein returned to Jerusalem and told the Prussian, or North German, government with whom he was working about this remarkable stone. The Prussian consul that Klein turned to was J. Heinrich Petermann. Petermann wanted to purchase the stone, so he contacted the Berlin Museum for funding. The museum obliged to purchase the stone. Klein contacted a sheik to help with the purchase and transport of the stone. Siegfried Horn says that Klein's use of an intermediary to follow through on his earlier agreement to acquire the stone unfortunately alerted the Bedouin to the intense European interest in the stone, and as a result, they raised the original price tenfold to $4,000. By this time, the news of the stone had leaked. British archaeologist Charles Warren, who was with the Palestine Exploration Fund, along with a French translator Charles Clermont-Ganneau, who worked for the French consulate in Jerusalem, had heard about the Moabite Stone. Warren decided not to intrude upon the efforts of the Prussians to obtain it. Ganneau, however, had other plans. Having heard of the sticky negotiations between the Prussians and the Bedouin, Ganneau sent an Arab friend to examine the stone and sketch some of its characters. After having determined the importance of the stone, Ganneau sent another man named Yakub Karavaka to make a squeeze of the inscription. Like paper mache, a squeeze is created by placing soft, wet paper over an inscription, then gently pressing the wet paper into the grooves of the letters of the inscription. Once dry, the paper becomes a reverse image of the inscription. While waiting on Karavaka to complete the squeeze and for it to dry, the Bedouin of the camp got into a very heated argument about the deal. The argument became so violent that Karavaka and his companions were wounded and had to flee for their lives. In a hasty retreat, one of Karavaka's companions grabbed the still wet squeeze and took it with them as they raced off on their horses. The squeeze, however, had been torn into 7 pieces. Peterman continued his attempt to negotiate a deal with the Bedouin for the stone. He turned to the Turkish Ottoman Kingdom, who were loosely considered the rulers of the region around Dibon. The Turkish government, desiring to secure ties with the Germans, was more than willing to help. But these national intrusions blew everything apart, literally. As it turned out, the Bedouin resented the local Turkish governor because of his harsh treatment of them, and they would rather the stone be shattered than relinquish it to the Turkish governor. So, the Bedouin heated the basalt stone and poured cold water on it while it was still very hot. The stone shattered. The many pieces were distributed among the local Bedouin tribes. After the Moabite stone had been shattered, Peterman and the Germans lost interest. The Frenchman, Charles Clermont Ganneau, did not. Instead, Ganneau published an announcement about the stone's existence in 1870. Ganneau, along with Englishman Charles Warren, thought it necessary to obtain as many pieces of the inscribed stone as possible. By 1875, Ganneau and Warren were able to collect 57 pieces, which makes up about 2/3 of the inscription. By using the fragments in the torn squeeze, Ganneau was able to restore the Moabite stone to its present condition at the Louvre. The scars and cracks of the shattering are glaringly visible. According to André Lemaire, until 1994, nobody had completed a definitive scholarly translation of the Moabite stone. Ganneau published a translation and commentary, but he, along with most academics, did not consider that early translation the definitive edition. In 1994, after working for 7 years, André Lemaire announced he would be publishing the definitive edition. In that translation, Lemaire declared that the script included the phrase, "House of David." As happens with ancient inscriptions, there was a scholarly debate concerning Lemaire's translation. The modern debate especially centered around the phrase, "House of David." The debate has spanned from the late 90s until as late as 2019. Some scholars, like Israel Finkelstein, Anson Rainey, and others, proposed alternatives to the phrase, "House of David." Those alternatives were considered unacceptable by a host of other scholars. The general, but not unanimous opinion is that the phrase is indeed the House of David. This debate has only added to the fame of the Moabite stone. But the primary biblical value for the Moabite stone, however, lies in the fact that when considered along with the biblical accounts and the Tel Dan House of David inscription, the Moabite stone inscription further confirms the House of David as a historical entity.
Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like and share, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future videos.